we were opening locations really quickly. So same thing, we had to really like hit the ground in a new market, go to market really aggressive with our marketing strategy and our pre-sales process. So that we knew we were going to be profitable when we opened the doors. And there's one thing to be profitable and like the money behind it. And there's a second piece that I think people forget, which is when you like do pre-sales, the energy behind your brand and behind your business, when you open with a couple hundred members, 200 members, 300 members, 400 members, and all of those people are talking about your brand, it accelerates your growth. It's like fuel on the fire for the growth of your business.
Hey, what's up, everybody? That was Amanda Goolsby, this episode's guest on the show. And Amanda talks about opening up your first or second, third, fourth, whatever new location with anywhere from 100 to 500 members on the day you open the door. In addition to bringing in that revenue, just the power and the vibe and the energy and the buzz that creates, having that many people in your gym, in your studio, the first day of business helps skyrocket your business to success down the road. So, and she gets into the details, into the weeds of exactly how to do just that. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Amanda Goolsby. Giants, and today I have a giant coming from you from Phoenix, Arizona, Amanda Goolsby. She's going to help us get a real world master's degree in fitness business from one of the masters in the business of fitness, and that's Amanda. Amanda's specialty is pre-sale. Imagine opening up day one with $100,000 in business. Imagine that. I mean, most of us will open up in debt with no revenue coming in. Amanda, what she does is she helps people open up and become profitable day one. And who wouldn't like that if you're in business? So just a little bit about Amanda before I introduce her and bring her on. So she's been in the fitness industry for 15 years. 10 of those years have been in the franchise space. And yes, she has spent 6 or 7 years with the dreaded giant Orange Theory. But, she started with Orange Theory when they had 10 locations. And when she left, they had over 850 locations across the nation. And she helped open up Orange Theories in different markets all across the nation. So she's got a wide breadth of experience, especially when it comes to pre-sale. And now she specializes in helping people scale their fitness and wellness brands if they want to open up more locations or in additional locations. And her specialty, what we're going to be talking about today, is pre-sale. And when I say open up with $100,000 in business day one, that's not theoretical. She's actually helped several businesses do that. So this is definitely a podcast where you want to get out some paper and pen and take some notes, because there are going to be some golden nuggets dropped that you want to pay attention to. So Amanda, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for that introduction, and I'm grateful to be on your show and get to share with your audience today.
Yeah, well, I was really pumped to have you on. We met at the last STS meeting in Pittsburgh. And I was basically stalking her all weekend, trying to get her onto the show. So as you can see, I was successful. I didn't have to get a restraining order or anything like I usually do. But I had to threaten her with her karaoke video. We went out to a karaoke bar and she did Etta James at last. She actually did great with it. But I had to threaten her with releasing the video if she didn't come on. But no. So let's talk about pre-sale. So you've had first of all, how did you get into pre-sale? I mean, I know you were with a franchise and with Orange Theory, but so how did you become a pre-sale specialist?
Great question. So the way that I got into it was I really got thrown in the early days, 2012 of Orange Theory. I mean, everyone was it was, people were just figuring it out. The franchise was figuring it out. The franchisees were figuring it out. And at that time, I got handed a location that someone else had been running, someone else had been managing. And I came in about 3 weeks before it was supposed to open. And at that time, there was like a minimum number, like you could not open, without 200 members at the time was the number. And we were nowhere close to 200 members. And so it was really put on my shoulders to say, okay, we got to do everything we can. And in 2012, it's important to reverse and rewind it and remember that there was no Facebook advertising at that point. So there was no social media marketing. Social media lead generation was not a thing. And there were about, the person that had been doing the pre-sale up until then had maybe gotten about around 70, 75 people in pre-sales in the months leading up to when I took over. And in the period of about 3 weeks, we added an additional 75 members to the pre-sale through our grand opening party. And we ended up, they kind of let us slide through. We opened with 150 members, which, might sound like a lot, but for a business model where most studios are breaking even closer to like 300, 350 members, we're losing money. We're losing a fair amount of money in that early days. So, I really got thrown into it. And then how I became, an expert in the space is that was a big portion of what I did for the next many years from 2012 to really, 2017 is I was really like helping franchisees get their location open, training their team, training their staff through the pre-sales process. And then for the studios that I was a partner in, we were opening locations really quickly. So same thing, we had to really like hit the ground in a new market, go to market really aggressive with our marketing strategy and our pre-sales process. So that we knew we were going to be profitable when we opened the doors. And there's one thing to be profitable and like the money behind it. And there's a second piece that I think people forget, which is when you like do pre-sales, the energy behind your brand and behind your business, when you open with a couple hundred members, 200 members, 300 members, 400 members, and all of those people are talking about your brand, it accelerates your growth. It's like fuel on the fire for the growth of your business. So it's not just that like initial, oh, great, we have enough money to cover the costs. It's also accelerated growth, which is what allowed us as a brand and Orange Theory as a brand and our studios in general to continue to accelerate how quickly we were opening facilities, because we did have that early success out of the gates, but it wasn't always that way. In the beginning, I had to learn the tough lesson of just what works and what doesn't, and what are the details that matter in this process to make sure that we can have the most profitable pre-sale that we can.
Great. I can't wait to dig into this with you. And that's a great point you mentioned about the energy and about creating a buzz. When you open with 200 members, it creates a buzz and that becomes the place to be. Everybody wants to be there. Mm-hmm. So that's like marketing momentum. You take that momentum and continue to build the studio. So that's a great point. So, and then going back, you said before the days of social media marketing, you were able to add 70 members in 3 weeks with no social media. Before we get into the process, because I know you've geeked out on the process and have it down to a science now, but how did you do that? How did you do the 70 members in 3 weeks with no social media? Do you remember?
Yeah, I totally remember, because it was June in Phoenix and it was over 100 degrees. And we had a presence in a pop-up tent in front of our facility every day for 8 to 10 hours a day for those entire 3 weeks leading up to it. And so although we might think like, yeah, there's the big piece of social media marketing and being able to generate leads online, how we did it in those early days in 2012 when we didn't have that is it was so much body to body, person to person, getting our name out, speaking to as many people as we could, flyering as many cars as we could every day so that people knew in our close, 3 mile radius that we were coming, and really just it was so much of that guerrilla and grassroots efforts that I believe really allowed us to generate leads, generate awareness, generate, people excitement that we were coming, and then have a powerful sales process so that when those opportunities got in front of us, we weren't just saying, oh, here we're coming soon. Yeah, come check us out sometime. But we were actually taking people through a sales process and making an offer for someone to become a founding member with us. So, the combination of consistent lead generation in the community, grassroots and guerrilla work, body to body, generating leads, handing out flyers, going into businesses. And then secondly, having a clear sales process in place so that we were converting members and getting them there, getting them excited. When we had our grand opening party, that final night, I want to say we did somewhere between like 30 and 40 signups, that just in the grand opening party alone. So we had been like generating these leads and we're like, last chance, come in, get into this party, get in for these rates. And we signed up a good chunk of those people in that final day and that final night.
I love that story because, and I talk about it a lot on the show. I was having a conversation with Frank Nash a while back, and we were talking about how social media has made people lazy.
Totally.
They think, oh, I did some posts on social media, I'm done with my marketing. Boom. And they forget like that hustle gene, that grind gene that you have to have. Like you said, you have to get out there. You have to get in front of people, set up a tent, be there for 8 hours a day for when people come by, have an offer for them, distribute the flyers, put a face with your franchise or with your studio so people like can put a face on it because that's what sells, right? They say, oh yeah, Amanda, oh yeah, you're with Orange Theory. Okay, yeah, I remember your offer. Can I sign up as a founding member? Is this my last chance? Blah, blah, blah. So that is so important to get out in the community and talk to people and just be a presence and be a face of your studio and not just rely on social media marketing. So I love that story. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And we talked about it before we started recording. Where do you start, or what do you think studio owners should start with the pre-sale?
Yeah, I believe the most important piece of this process, it comes down to mindset. It's like, I believe that a lot of people aren't executing because of either limiting beliefs that they hold around why this won't work for their brand, their business, their model, their whatever, or they're just not prepared for the investment that pre-sales is. Because I'm not gonna lie or say anything that like, oh yeah, you can just pop up a tent, have you be there and don't spend any money and don't do, and all of a sudden you're going to have 200, 300, 400 people. Like, no, pre-sales is an investment. So it's the mindset of, number one, belief that I can do this, belief that it's going to work, because it does. It doesn't matter what membership-based business you're selling. I have people in my pre-sales online program right now that are spa businesses, that are wellness businesses, that are Pilates businesses. So it doesn't matter if you are a straight boot camp high intensity or you're something else. If it's a membership-based business, you have the capacity to run a pre-sale. So number one is belief. And then number two is fully committing to the process, meaning that you're going to make the investment financially to invest into the pre-opening marketing, to invest in the pre-opening team that can run pre-sales, so that, yeah, the day we open, we are able to recoup that investment and the lifetime value of those customers that we're not even projecting out over the course of 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 months. But those are really the places that I see is where you have to start. Like, believe that you can do this. Have like soul belief and mindset that this is possible for you and your business. And then number two, get clear about what the investment is for you to execute on this plan.
Yeah, that's I like that. So going back to mindset, because that's so important on everything. But can you give us an example of one of your clients who was kind of naysaying it and you had to like hold their hand and walk them through the process till they became a believer, and what convinced them? Yeah,
great question. So I have a client right now that is a brand, or there's a brand that has 100 units open so far in the wellness space. So they've opened 100 units and have never done a pre-sale in any of those units. And I came into a specific market where there's an area developer who oversees the region. And I came in and supported her region in saying, okay, well, we've seen this work in other brands. We've seen this work in other businesses. We want to show that it's possible for our business. And so I've been in there supporting their brand. I went on site and did a workshop, and there was still a lot of limiting beliefs like, well, this isn't straight fitness. It's not treadmills and dumbbells. People aren't going to want to sign up. They don't know what this is. And I said, here's the thing. And this goes for everyone. It's like when you sell in your open studio or your open center, whatever you call it, typically you're selling after the first visit, maybe after the second visit, but you're selling like 1 to 2 visits in. It's like where I got them to see that switch. And I was like, I went in and went through your service. I was like, you guys would have asked me to sign up at the end of that class anyways. The only difference is that they aren't experiencing that 1 15-minute session that you would take them through. That's it. There's no other difference. I said, so you actually probably have less barriers to overcome in pre-sales, less reasons why people won't sign up because, oh, I'm tired. I just finished the workout. I need to think about it because I'm not, just all these objections that can come up. And so now they have franchisees that have started to implement the process that are fully in pre-sales. And one is about to open. Their business model is in such a way that like their profitability mark is like right around 150 is how many founding members they need to be profitable. And the first franchisee that like fully went in, she's on track to be profitable by the end of her first 30 days. She'll probably end up clearing, I'd say if she stays on her pace of how many sales she's been doing per week, she'll finish her first 30 days around 185 members, somewhere around that mark. And so her business will be in the black at the end of that first 30 days.
Nice.
And it's proving what's possible, right? It's like one person does it. Now other people are like, oh, so it can be done. Oh, okay. So this is possible for us. And then it's just like committing and duplicating that process over and over again.
So that's the tipping point is when they start to see the numbers coming in and the pre-sale, the founding members going up, then they're like, oh, well, maybe there is something to this. And then that's the tipping point. Then they get on board and they go all in.
Yeah. And, obviously with a brand and a fast growing, expanding brand, it's one thing. But if you're an independent owner that has even one facility and you didn't pre-sale in it, and now you're thinking, hey, I'm going to do this again, but I don't want to do it the slow build way. I don't want to open with 0 members and then have 20 and then have 40 and then have 60. Because I think the piece that gets lost is they're like, people see the upfront investment of pre-sales and they like are scared of it, or they're like, I don't know, like spending all that. And it's like, but wait a second. You're going to spend that anyways. You're going to bleed that cash. You're going to open and it's going to cost you $20,000 to operate your business in month 1, but you're only going to generate $5,000 in revenue, let's call it. So that means you're going to pay in out of your pocket, $15,000 to keep the doors open, to keep the lights on. And then in month 2, you gain a little bit more and you're going to bleed $12,500, and then you'll bleed 10, and then you'll bleed 7,500, and then 5, and then 2,500. And by the time you get to month 8, you've invested, kept spending into the business another $70,000 or $80,000, right? So you're going to spend that money anyway. It's just switching where that investment goes. It's in seeing the value in investing early and gaining that early momentum versus paying out and bleeding that cash over the first 6 to 12 months that you're open. And hopefully you get profitable. But I see more success with the businesses that have 100, have 200, 300 members out of the gates than the ones that start with 0 members and then try this like slow creep to get their heads above water.
Yeah. And when you were talking earlier about the energy, right? So if you open up your first month in business, you got like 5 clients, it's like crickets going off in there. And everybody's like, all the clients that signed up are like, what have I done?
Yeah.
This place is not going to make it. It's going to go under. I've wasted my money because there's no energy there, right? Like like you were saying before. So let's get into the investment. So step 2, you have to fully invest and commit. So what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. You know, this number and this figure is very dependent on a few things. Number one, it's dependent on how many founding members you want to get during your pre-sales process. So for example, if you're a business, mind you, the client that I was talking about that's going to open with, you know, by the end of their first 30, she's covering the 100 mark in pre-sales. She did that by herself with basically no other team. So like that's how far you're going to get if you're one person running a pre-sale. Like you're not going to get, I've not seen someone do 200, 300, 400 pre-sales with a one-man show. So the big question is how many founding members allows us to break even? And if that number is, hey, we want to open so that we're break even and to profitability in our first 30 days, great. The second piece is, so knowing how many people you want, and then really doing some math around, hey, if we're going to be spending money on marketing, what's our overall marketing budget going to be? And how much are we going to need to invest if we're getting approximately a certain amount of a cost per lead? Like, let's say it's costing you through your social media campaigns, like you're getting $10 of a cost per lead. So I have like a evaluator where I just plug in someone's numbers with them. And I'm like, hey, if you want to have 200 members and your average cost per lead is this, and we kind of project some conversion rates of how many of those leads actually end up getting on the phone or sitting down with us and become set appointments, how many of those show up and how many of those sign up, what's our closing percentage. Once we take someone through that and plug in their projected numbers, then we can say, okay, yeah, like in order to hit, I did it with someone the other day, like in order to hit 250, you're going to need to invest $20,000 into your pre-opening marketing. And then outside of that, it's the human resource element and, you know, kind of the material, the raw materials that it takes to do that grassroots and guerrilla. So I would say there's a range, but I would say for most businesses, what I'm finding as I do their evaluation with them is it's somewhere in the range of $20,000 to $30,000 of an upfront investment to run the pre-sale. Higher end when it comes to like more team resource, like a center manager, studio manager that's going to be running that pre-sale, and 1 to 2 sales associates through that 12-week pre-opening process. And then how much financial investment is going to go into marketing and the conversion of that, right? If you have really strong sales ability and leads are coming in and you're closing really high, then great. You may not have to spend as much on marketing, but I'd say a comfortable figure is $20,000 to $30,000, although we in studios that we were aiming to get 500 pre-sales in, we were investing upwards of $50,000 in just that pre-sale process between staffing, marketing, pre-opening office running for 12 weeks, 14 weeks before we opened. So the range anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000, I would say, just depending on how many people do you need in order to be profitable. Okay. What's your goal?
All right, so that's great information. So $20,000 to $30,000 up front, that's your budget, and that includes everything. So you includes hiring a team, includes marketing and events. So let's break that down. Like, what kind of marketing materials you describe the team, and what kind of like grassroots and guerrilla efforts are typically involved in something like that, and also calendar, like what's the timeline here?
Yeah. So the timelines, I'll start with the timeline because the timeline is really important. So the timeline ideally is that at a minimum, this is where that mindset comes in. You're a fully open and operating business for, 8 hours a day in pre-sales, 5 to maybe a half day on Saturday, 5.5 days a week from at least 10 weeks before your facility opens. So from a timeline perspective, that's typically going to be in line with when you're doing your studio build out. So if your build out is going to start, and I know everyone always is like, oh, our build out goes so fast, it's going to happen in 4 weeks. I'm always like, it always is going to take longer than you think. So
and costs more.
And costs more than you think. But it's like, ideally, if you start your permitting is done, permitting is happening, you're doing all your preparation for pre-sales, you're hiring, you're training your team, you're going through scripts, you're like getting everything ready, you're getting all your raw materials together, you're beginning that grassroots and guerrilla brand awareness leading up to the actual launch. But then when you say, okay, construction is starting, construction is projected to take 6 to 8 weeks for full build out. We've got to do equipment, we've got to make sure our team is fully ready, we've got to then get our certificate of occupancy, and then we can go live and actually be an open and running facility. Well, then that pre-sales process ideally is about 10 to maybe 12 weeks, and then you have some sort of this like transitionary period where the founding members get access to the facility. So a lot of my clients are selecting to do either 1 or 2 weeks of founding member weeks, where those members get access to the facility as part of being a founding member. They get access to come in a certain amount of times or unlimited, depending on the business model. And so the overarching kind of timeline, though, of which you're marketing and selling is about 12 to 14 weeks in total, including those 1 to 2 weeks of founding member weeks. In relation to, the strategy around grassroots and guerrilla, it's different for every business. Like, it's different when you look at, hey, the big thing that I think that is important for people to think about is, who is our ideal customer? Who is it? Is it a woman between the ages of 30 and 50? Is it, a woman over the age of 55? Is it men and women between 40 and 60? Because the reason I say it's important to have that understanding is that when you think about grassroots and guerrilla marketing, there's a human resource element. You've got to put in effort. You've got to be boots on the ground. You got to have people to do that type of work, but you want to make the most out of that time. So it's one thing to just like go be canvassing a community and be like getting your name out there and doing introductions with businesses. It's probably of a higher quality to say, where does our ideal client, where does that person shop? Where does that person work, currently do, just like, where do they shop? Where do they eat? Where do they hang out? Where do they spend their time? Because if we can partner with those businesses where our ideal client is already frequenting, then the value of those relationships and those strategic partnerships is so much higher than just like, we're going to go pass out flyers and we're in like Bob's hot dog shop down the road, and like, our clients are never going to go in there. That's just not where they frequent, right? Mm-hmm. And so the more strategic you can be thinking around, where are those ideal clients of that will become members of us within 3 miles, and then utilizing that as where you do your business to business outreach and partnership, where you set up, whether it's events that you're going to participate in, where you're going to hand out flyers, where you're going to hand out reusable grocery bags in the parking lot. Is it going to be in the dollar store parking lot, or is it going to be in the Whole Foods parking lot, right? So understanding that demographic really allows you to be strategic about where you place your time for the things that you don't necessarily, you're handing out flyers. It's really marketing. It's not like you're generating a lead from that, but you want to get those flyers in the hands of people that are highly likely to become members with you, not just anyone and everyone in any parking lot. And that was, when I look back to the early days, I was just like, wherever there's a car, I'm going to put a flyer. And like now with a higher level of education around this process, I'm like, I'm going to be strategic about who I partner with, about what businesses we're in, because I want it to be of the highest value for where our target ideal customer is spending time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it goes back to mindset, because when you open up, especially if you're opening up a studio, small studio,
you only need you need a very small number of people to make that studio go. We're talking anywhere from like 300 to 500 people. You know, if it's like an Orange Theory, if it's like a personal training studio, you may only need between 100 and 200 people.
Totally.
So it's not a tremendous amount of people. So, and then Tim Ferriss said a long time ago is that you don't need to be everywhere, but you need to be everywhere your customers are. So if, like, to your point, if you know what your ideal client looks like, then you just go everywhere they are. And then they're like, man, these guys are everywhere. No, we're not everywhere. We're just everywhere you are because we want you. So those are both great points. All right. So, and then, so that's the timeline, and then being strategic on your efforts so that you get the most return, the biggest return on your investment. And then from there, so we talked about 10 to 12 weeks, being strategic. What else goes into that? When you say, like, what type of, like, grassroots guerrilla, we covered, like going to local businesses, flyers on cars. What else are some of the things that you have found effective from a grassroots kind of developing a community presence?
Yeah. So again, it's like pretty dependent on the type of business that you're in, but I think it's important to, like, strategic partnerships. So if there are businesses that you guys share ideal clients, that you guys can become referral partners where, hey, we're going to have a couple hundred founding members that are going to be coming in over the course of the next 10 to 12 weeks. We're investing a lot of money in marketing. We want to be able to refer people into your business just as much as we would appreciate referrals back. So I think those strategic business partnerships that align, we've gone as far as, you know, partnering with, like, a dry cleaner, local dry cleaner, where, hey, we'll spend money, pay you to put our flyer, to put our promotion material on every piece of dry cleaning that you give out for the course of the next 2 to 4 weeks. How much is that worth to you? Well, if you know that a member's lifetime value, ideally, or like you can say, hey, the cost of membership is $200, and on average, we get people to stay 10 months. Okay, great. Like, that's $2,000 for a lifetime value for that customer. Well, then, how much are you willing to spend just to get one person? Like, are you willing to spend, you know, $200? Is it like a 10x return? Is like, yeah, we'll spend up to $200 to acquire one customer if we know the lifetime value of that customer is $2,000. If you're in early stages, you might not have that data to know, but it's worth investing some cash up front into making those strategic partnerships happen to get more leads, to get more awareness in some of these higher volume, kind of grassroots efforts that don't require a person going person to person and handing out a flyer, right? It's like leverage, thinking about how can we leverage what we have so that in the local community, other businesses are helping us with this, expansion. Another thing is, like, really depending on your business, getting invested with like local brands that already have high volumes of traffic. So if you are a premium brand and you are in the fitness space, creating partnerships with Lululemon or Athleta, brands like that, where they a lot of times will allow you to host, we hosted many like on-site workshops, on-site body weight, workouts in their facility on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, things like that. So there are opportunities in the fitness space or in the wellness space to create those partnerships with already established brands that already have established customer bases that you're able to leverage through your grassroots efforts.
Okay, gotcha. And that's those are all great points. And I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier about the lifetime value of a client, because I know me personally, when I opened my studio, I was a trainer jumping into the fitness business space. I knew how to train. I didn't know a lot about fitness business. So for me, when somebody told me, actually it was Thomas Plummer, and Thomas, if you know Thomas, is not subtle. Yeah. He said my marketing spend needed to be $3,000. And I'm thinking, shit, that's a lot of money. I'm thinking of that like personal dollars, like $3,000 is a lot. But when you look at it as a business, it really isn't, especially when you look at the lifetime value of a client. So if I get a client, say my average EFT per client is $300, and I get a client who signs up for an annual contract. That's, what is that, $3,600 a year, right? So am I going to spend $3,000 to get that client? Yeah, I am, because then I'm going to be $600 in the black. If I get 2 clients, even more. So like when you look at it that way, when you look at the big picture and the lifetime value of the client, then it pays to spend that money on marketing spend. But it's also, like you were saying before, it's that mental shift, looking at it through a slightly different lens that you have to do if you're going to be successful. So those are great points. So that's all great information. I want to talk about now the offer, because I know you said before you even start, as you're hiring people, you're training them, you're role playing, you've got scripts, you've got a process, you've got to offer. So what does that look like? What are some of the offers that you've seen the most success with? Scripts, processes, all of that thing, all of those things based around the pre-sale.
Yeah. So, obviously the offer is really important, because that's like your hook, right? When it comes to marketing, it's like that offer is what's going to be generating the leads. It's like if someone sees, hey, coming soon is like all the promotion is, okay, great. Why do I have any reason to make a decision now, or to call or follow up? It's like, oh, great, you're going to be coming. I'll come find you in a month, 2 months. So the other piece is that your business model and how you charge is going to really vary, because if someone is in a personal training, like small group personal training business, let's call it, and their price point is at that like $300 per month, but their capacity is also at like no more than 200 or 250 members, let's call it. Okay. Well, if you significantly discount your monthly rate and grandfather people in, so it's like, oh, it's 20% off, so it's $240 a month instead of being $300 a month for our founding members. Well, if you end up selling 150 founding memberships at 60, or let's say you sell 100 founding memberships at $60 discount, that's $6,000 a month. That's $72,000 a year in that first year that you're not going to be receiving in revenue by all those people being grandfathered in at a 20% discount. That's one thing. Like a founding member rate, I think, is really valuable when a business has a higher capacity, right? Like they can fit 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 people into a single facility. Well, then if 200 people have this discount, there's going to be turnover and there's going to be fall off over the course of, the first year or so. And then as people sign up, they're signing up at the higher rate. But I think it's important to just be thinking about that as you think about an offer, is like, what's our capacity? And maybe you offer something for someone that has like a small group training facility. Typically what I've been in conversation around is like, offer a discounted rate for a certain period of time. So rather than it being like $60 off for the lifetime of your membership, it's founding member rate, which it is. And that rate is for your first 90 days, you receive a 20% discount. But then it's not like ongoing for the lifetime of that membership. It's still enough to entice them to make a buying decision early. And that's the piece that I think is just important as anyone worth to think about, well, what's my offer going to be? Your offer needs to be compelling enough that it entices someone to make a buying decision now versus waiting till after you open. So if there's no discount, there's no added value, there's nothing additional benefit that they receive, and you're just like, hey, we're selling memberships early instead of selling memberships when we open, someone's like, well, why would I'll just wait and try it and then sign up after you open. And so they're betting on you as much as we're asking them to like sign up early, they're also being an early adopter. So whether you add value as your offer and give them additional benefits of being a founding member, whether you offer a discount or you offer a some sort of like free access, right? When the facility opens, like as a founding member, you get 1 full week free or 2 weeks of free training or 2 weeks of free access or additional service, whatever that is, or any combination of those things. That's typically where I'm seeing the offer being. It's like discount potential, value add potential, and like free access potential, or any combination of those.
Okay. And then do you guys ever do like an A/B test or do you do an A/B test with your clients on offers to see which ones kind of resonate a little bit more?
I would say more. I've had clients that, in their marketing, they work on kind of the messaging around even, is it, 2 weeks free versus founding member rates? Like what is from a A/B testing from a marketing perspective. And I'm not the marketing expert and I don't claim to be when it comes to actually like running social media and doing that. I have partnerships with brands and businesses that will run those ads, but I do think that's an important piece as you're going to put your ads out. As far as your offer goes, I think it's really important that you come to a clear decision and you are making a solid offer from the beginning. You're not moving that throughout the course of your pre-sale. Your ad itself or the hook might be different, but what your offer is, staying consistent through that process. Because you don't want to we signed up our first 50 people like this, and then the next 50 people we signed up at this, and then the first group's like, well, wait, I got a different offer. And you don't want to create that inconsistency and lack of trust in the beginning. And it can be really confusing for teams. So I think, really looking at your business model and the financial side of it, like what does that mean financially for the business, for how long that person's going to be a member prospectively, as you go to create that offer.
Gotcha. And then, so what does and I agree with you 100% on that, because I know I fell into the trap of that, and then it became an accounting nightmare too, because I look at like the memberships and I have like 20 different types of memberships, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a cluster. And then trying to clean that up is impossible once they become a member. It won't happen. So that's a great point. Just be consistent with your offer from the beginning, and then that will create that level of trust, and also some clean bookkeeping so you can understand a little bit better how your business is running, where you're making your money and where you're not. So I think that's a great point. So let's talk about the script. What does that look like, and how does that flow? If you can give us some kind of outline on that.
Yeah. So first off, I'll say where I see one of the biggest mistakes in people that just kind of go what I would consider halfway in with pre-sales is that they don't think about it in the mindset of like, I'm a fully open business and we have an office and we have a team, almost like as if you were open just without the actual operations. Like that's, in my opinion, and with the strategy that I teach, it's like you need to have a physical presence at or around your space for the 10 to 12 weeks before you open. Because if you're just expecting that leads are going to come in online, you're going to call them and be like, hey, James, I saw you submitted your information online. Would love to chat with you more and share more about what we do, blah, 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 blah. This is our offer. This is what we got going on. Would you like to be a founding member? Now, I'd say about 25% of people from my experience, this is like a guess, is like about 25% of people are already ready to make a buying decision like that, just from their excitement, or they want, whatever. Like you make a phone call, they're ready to sign up. The other 75% is totally not that group. It's the group that's going to need relationship building. They're going to need to understand their side of this. Why is it important for them to make a change? Why is it important for them to make a commitment? Why haven't they done this up until now? And so when I talk about, the sales process, is that I really teach my clients and the people that are going through my online program is that you need to treat your sales process in pre-sales just like you would in an open studio or in an open center. So when someone comes into your facility, James, and they're coming in to do their first visit or their first, trial session or whatever it is, you have a process, right? You have some sort of a process you take them through. I'm
Correct.
guessing you have some sort of intake process to understand their background and their movement, and you do some evaluations with them, and then you take them through a workout and you talk to them throughout that workout about how what they want relates to what you're doing, and then you present a price to them at the end and you ask them to become a member with you, right? Something like that. Well, it's the same thing in pre-sales. You need to make sure that you don't change that process by thinking, oh, pre-sales, so people are just going to call and they're just going to want to sign up. It doesn't work like that. You need to make sure that from a script perspective and from a sales process perspective, that you are still following a process just like you would in your open facility. But when you come to the portion where someone would normally take a workout or they would normally go through a session, the only difference is that during that portion, you're going to show them what it would be like, whether that's through visuals, whether that's through a video, whether that's through a PDF on a iPad where you show them, hey, this is how we would take you through a session. This is what the equipment's like. These are the movement patterns we do. This is the results that we're aiming for. But like, you're really making sure that they understand what it would be like to be a member with you. And that's in part of the pre-sales process. But the piece that gets missed, the phone call and people are going to sign up, is that we're not doing that discovery and needs analysis. It's like the biggest miss is like the pre-workout interview. Before someone takes a session at your facility, if you're not sitting down and talking to them in an open studio for 15 minutes and really understanding them and understanding their motivation and understanding their commitment and overcoming some potential objections that could come after the workout. And I know, you have a podcast with Eric Charles Russell around sales and selling. And
overcoming objections before they bring them up. Yep.
Exactly. So that all happens. That has to be a part of the sales process. Otherwise, people are going to come up with all of these objections when you go to make the offer. And if you haven't invested the time up front to overcome the objections and ask the right questions, gain commitment, gain motivation before you ever make your offer, then you're really leaving a lot of potential opportunity on the table by just expecting, hey, I'm going to make a call. I'm going to call James. He submitted his information. He's ready to sign up. And the likelihood of that is like 1 out of 4. And you're missing, it's a big portion of potential pre-sales that you're missing. So I do recommend having a physical space, having a sales process from the time someone walks up to your booth and sits to have this fitness assessment or wellness assessment or whatever that word is whatever that languaging is that you want to call it, but you're actually taking them through the steps of the process, just like you would if your facility was open.
Yeah, a great point. And you took the words right out of my mouth, where Eric Charles Russell kind of walks them through and kind of pre-qualifies them and overcomes objections before they even bring them up. So that way they're qualifying themselves every step of the way. So then when you do present them with the offer, you already know if it is a right fit for them or not. And they do too. So that's a great point. So we covered a lot. Is there anything that we forgot in this pre-sale process that you think is important or critical?
Oh man.
So much.
Yeah. There's a lot. So one thing that I would say is like important and critical that I see gets missed or gets left out a lot, even with the clients that I've worked with through their process, is it's really important to have really clear organization through pre-sales. There's a lot going on. And I believe that you're not actually running memberships, right? You're not processing payments, or if you are, it's like a portion. But where I see a lot of people make mistakes is they're having all these conversations with people and they don't keep good organization of who signed up, who didn't sign up, but is still interested in what we're doing. And how do we keep that really clearly organized throughout the process so that we can continue to leverage those conversations and relationships as we transition into an open studio or an open facility? Because in pre-sales, there's going to be people that you talk to that don't end up signing up, right? There's bound to be people that just don't say yes for whatever reason. And if you can keep really good track of who those people are and those conversations where you've already began to build the relationship, your first 6 weeks of being open can be a really high hockey stick of growth, because you've leveraged all of that work you've been doing in pre-sales in that transition into becoming open studio. Because the game changes when you open. I think this is an important thing to remember and to point out. Pre-sales, your only focus is sales and marketing. Sales and marketing, sales and marketing, sales and marketing, and leading your team around those efforts. Obviously, you've got build out construction happening, but you're not running classes, coaching, running the facility, cleaning the facility, responding to members, canceling memberships, freezing memberships, like running payments, all those things that happen when you open, you're not doing in pre-sales. So it's your one time to keep that sole focus on the sales and marketing aspect, because keeping that organized so that when you do get into the transition into open studio and everything else becomes important and all these other components become important, you've got these clear systems in place for organization, organizing your members, organizing your opportunities, showing what's possible as you make that transition so that you can sign up. What I typically see is 2 weeks of Founders Weeks, first 4 weeks of being open, you can add another 75 to 100 members in that 6 week period if you are leveraging the work that you did in pre-sales really well.
Yeah, that's a good point as far as like keeping track of people that signed up and also keeping tabs on them once they sign up to that founding member, not forgetting about them or neglecting them, because then you can lose them that way too, right?
Yeah, if you sign up 12 weeks before and you're excited when you sat down with me, James, and I'm like doing your intake and I get you excited and you're pumped up, you're ready to go. But then I don't talk to you for 12 weeks and then I run your credit card and you're like, oh wait, I even forgot that I signed up for that. Never mind, I just want to cancel. And that is a mistake that I made in my early days, in the early days of launching studios, where that I was just like focused on getting the next member. So having systems in place for building early community, it's like if you're most of these businesses, these brick and mortar businesses really revolve around community. They revolve around people coming together that are, have common shared goals. And
the
so
third place.
if you can start to create that community, even in your pre-sale, and make sure you have communications with your founding members all the way up to the point where the founding member week start or to when the facility opens, so that clear communication is there, then you're much more likely to retain people and to have their memberships actually processed, because there's always going to be fall off. There's always going to be people as you go to open that are like, they moved or they're whatever. They like don't end their membership doesn't end up actually processing, but the fall off can be mitigated. The risk can, kind of minimize if you just to make sure you stay in really good modes of contact with people through that process.
Yeah, like you say, keep them in the loop and create that community early on. So if they can know each other before they even take their first class, that's even better. So, and then the retargeting of the people who didn't convert. And so I know you mentioned like a grand opening party. On the people that didn't commit, do you invite them to the grand opening as well?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I see the grand opening as your opportunity to, it's really, if you set it up right, if you position it right, it's a sales event. It's a celebration of we're opening, but if you set it up right, you should be targeting all the missed opportunities from pre-sales, meaning anyone that came in, learned about you, didn't end up making a buying decision. You should be targeting your current members to be bringing referrals. So having incentives in place for members to bring someone with them to the party that could be a potential sign up. You're promoting within your local community, whether that's being on a Facebook, having a Facebook event, having it on Eventbrite, having it anywhere where someone who's just looking for stuff to go to is also like, oh, wow, okay, that's happening in my local area. So having that visibility, and then all those missed guests, like those are prime people, especially if your founding rates go through, say, that grand opening party, which is typically with the timeline that I support my clients through creating. It's like that party happens at the end of your founders weeks, and then you process payments right after that. So if that's the case and you're running all your memberships the next day, it's final urgency and scarcity of like last chance for founders rates, last chance to get in for our, founding offer, for our value adds, whatever that is. It's really your last chance. So you can leverage that party as a way to kind of get that final push of sales at the end, right before you're going to be running memberships and opening the doors for business.
Gotcha. And those are great. I mean, this has been good. I would like to have you back on because there's so much that we can still talk about that we didn't get to, but I want to respect our time. So I come to our favorite part, my favorite part of the podcast. Have you seen a full episode?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I saw part of the episode with Eric, but I haven't seen the full
he's
thing.
a high energy guy. I can't wait to meet that guy. But so I always end with a couple of questions, and it's my favorite part. It's not really a gotcha, but I get some of my favorite answers from these questions. So the first one is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean at the time seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from that and use those to propel you to greater success further down the road.
It's a great question.
And it doesn't have to be, it could be professional, personal, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I would say when I was 21, I was about to start my senior year of college. And I had owned my own personal training business. I was teaching group fitness classes. I was studying exercise science. I was doing personal training. I'm about ready to start my senior year, but like my whole life is based around fitness. I was competing in fitness competitions. And at the blink of an eye, I almost lost my leg in a jet ski accident. I got into a really bad accident. And at that time, my 21-year-old self saw my entire life, my entire identity, everything that my life had been built around was fitness. And I saw it come crashing down. Like in a split second, it was gone. Like I saw my future. I was like playing out this story in my head of like, I'm sitting here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep my leg or not. That's how bad the injury and the accident was. And I'm going into emergency vascular surgery to fix the severed artery. And I'm like, just forecasting out, seeing all of these things, seeing my life be completely different than how I had envisioned it. And that accident and that experience, it did lead to like this downward cycle of a deep depression and gaining 30 pounds and getting into an abusive relationship and getting involved in drugs and alcohol as like a coping mechanism through it all, to the point where I was like, my life had gone from all that success that I was having to literally being homeless, selling drugs in a period of like 18 months. And that quote unquote failure has also been one of the greatest catalysts to my upward transformation and to achieving what I have over the course of the next, 6 to 7 to now it's been, almost 10 years, 9.5 years since that accident happened. But, that 18 months, my whole life fell apart. And sometimes I believe that we experience things and we go through things in life so that, things fall apart, and what felt like a failure, what felt like I had really taken my life down this negative path. But now I have this depth and breadth of experience that is one of my superpowers. It's like my ability to connect with such a range of people, from the person that's homeless on the streets, that's involved in, partying and drugs and alcohol, to the CEO of the company and everything in between. And that's a superpower that I now have. But at the time, it felt like a failure. At the time, it felt like my life had fallen apart. And I'm grateful that I experienced it, because it just gave me so much life lessons and wisdom and emotional control and resiliency and just so much that I could not have ever, I couldn't have gotten those character skills without experiencing what I experienced.
Yeah. And the fact that you experienced it at such a young age so that you can take that through the rest of your life like that. And I think that's where most of the growth happens, is when you kind of strip away that veneer and kind of get to what's underneath, or sometimes even go to those dark places. So that's a great answer. I really like that. And I remember you sharing that story out in Pittsburgh. And it definitely resonated with me. I can definitely relate to that. And kudos for you for being resilient and bouncing back from that. I mean, you went from homeless to, like you said, working with major corporations and operating your own consulting business now. My next question is, in your time in the fitness industry, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming?
Yeah, I would say that maybe the biggest surprise or unknown that at just like a young age of getting into it that I just didn't realize was that it takes a lot of leadership. Like you have to really be committed to developing yourself as a leader and being a really strong leader, because employees and team and people, they can go anywhere. Like in this day and age, like opportunities are abundant for them to teach anywhere, to be a part of any facility. So like your ability to hold vision and to create culture and to have strong relationship building skills and to really be a powerful leader for your team is so important. And in my early days and younger years, I just didn't understand that. And that was one of the biggest like wake up moments when I had a mentor just like be like, hey, like kind of reflect to me how I showed up and said, you've got to study leadership. You've got to invest in like becoming the best leader you can, because people can go anywhere. So if you're going to build an organization, whether that's building culture within your membership base, that's still you showing up as a leader. Whether that's building culture within your team, that's still you showing up as a leader. And so that your leadership ability is going to really have a humongous pivotal piece of what the success is that you're going to have overall in the course of your business.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one thing running a one-person show. It's a whole different thing running a team and a business. So as far as that goes, like what were some of the leadership qualities that you had to find or develop within yourself?
Yeah, great question. So I would say that the one that stands out to me the most is like, I'm a very, I should say I was in my early years, a very like just direct, you do this, you do this, you do this, go do the things, like, let's go. Like, why do we have to do all of this soft skill stuff? And so for me, it was like, really, it came down to building relationships. It came down to like truly caring about the people that are either your members and what's going on in their life, or your team members and what's going on in their life. So that like before coming in and just being like, did you do this, 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 and this? It's like really having a holistic care to like the human that's in front of you and what they're experiencing and what's going on in their world, and taking time to invest in those relationships. Because if you don't have relationship equity, then good luck having people follow and having people want to do things for you when you haven't really built that relationship equity. You haven't poured into them enough. You haven't cared about their growth and their development enough for them to want to go above and beyond for you and your business.
Great point. And I agree 100%. It's because it's all about getting them invested, because you want them to work and care just as much as you do. And in order for them to do that, they have to be invested in the process, know that you care about them, that you are looking out for their best interests, you have their best interests in mind, that they're involved in the process. And then they start to care, and then they start to work as hard as you would. So because that's the biggest complaint, is that like I have these employees, but they don't work as hard as I do. Well, you have to do some leadership and team building and get them invested in the process. I agree 100%. So my last one is, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Great question. Well, I love personal development. Like growth is by far one of my top, like probably my top core value is growth. If I don't feel like I'm growing, I really feel like I'm struggling. And so I'm always looking for ways to improve. But I've had mentors across the time. One of the mentors that I've had in the world of high performance has been Brendan Burchard. And I started studying with Brendan in 2013, before it was that it is today, but really understanding high performance and really understanding how do we create sustained levels of high performance, not just these like peak performance where we go up and then go down, but really high levels of performance. So I invest in going to live workshops and seminars. I invest in one-on-one coaching, and learning different skill sets that are going to be valuable for where I'm at in business right now. And I think that's the most important thing, is to truly have some self-awareness, to check in and say, not just like going to all of these things and investing. Is like, what do I need and what does my business need right now that's going to move the needle the most? And then being strategic about that learning and investing in that way. But I would say your business and your business growth is always going to be limited by your personal growth. So yes. How much you're committed to how you grow as a person, to your level of awareness, your level of self-reflection, your ability to, hey, be honest with yourself. I have practices in my daily and weekly life of journaling, of meditating on a daily basis, of doing these reflective processes to say, hey, where am I, and what needs to shift, what needs to change, and what do I need to implement and take action on? Because without that, like, you can just be spinning your wheels, and we all have this unknown and untapped potential that we ourselves don't even know. But the more that we can be self-reflective and self-aware, and even ask for reflections of others, be willing to have the hard conversation, to ask your partner, to ask your employees, to ask your best friend. I have a practice of just asking, hey, how are you seeing me show up? Like, I want you to be a mirror for how you see me. Do you see me different? What's the blind spots that I have? What's the black dot that's on my forehead that I don't see, Right. Can you point that out to me? Because if you can get some powerful reflections of how other people perceive you that you might not be fully aware of, and be willing to like have those blind spots reflected to you, your ability to personally grow is going to accelerate. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. It's about... I can't remember who said it, but they said that the quality of your life is directly dependent on the number of tough conversations you're willing to have with people in your life. And I believe that willingness to have those hard conversations. And any conversation where they're talking about your soft underbelly, that's a hard conversation to have. Yeah. So, but I agree with you 100%. That's a great answer. So where can people go in the world if they want to contact you, reach out to you, get more information?
Yeah, definitely. So you can go to my website, which is amandagoolsby.com. My last name on the screen, but Goolsby, amandagoolsby.com. On Instagram, I'm at Amanda Goolsby Coaching. And, for the people that are wanting more support in that pre-sales process, that are, hey, I want to do this, but like, I've never done the process before. I don't know how to do it. I have a whole online virtual training platform that teaches you step-by-step, A to Z, how to execute a pre-sale so that you're profitable. And I have clients that receive coaching, ongoing support from me through their process, so that they are, hey, making the most out of this upfront investment that they're getting. But I really love supporting business owners to not be struggling the first 6 to 12 months when they already have enough stress on their shoulders of opening a new business, that I love seeing, hey, this piece can take this stress away by getting this piece in place. So, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, hey, I want to open my next location, or I already have one, or I'm getting ready to open my very first one, it's like, don't miss out on this opportunity, because it's one of the most vital aspects of launching your business powerfully and successfully, is running the pre-sale play properly.
Yeah, and I think it's a good kind of school if you're opening up your first one. I think it's a good learning tool for you to learn how to run your business successfully by running a successful pre-sale.
Totally.
It will help you definitely, and it will definitely help you sleep better at night, knowing that you're profitable day one. For sure.
Yeah.
So, but all of those links will be in the show notes. Just go to trainerjim.net and click on this episode of the podcast, and all the links to contact Amanda will be in the show notes. And I'm working right now on updating the website. So it will be mifb.com. I will let you guys know when that new website is up. I just saw the first look today, and it's pretty slick. The guy's doing a great job. I was in love with it. So you have all that exciting news coming your way. So Amanda, I may reach out to you again. I probably will reach out to you again to have you back on the podcast, because this has been great. And there's been so much that we really didn't cover that I would like to dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to be on the show, and hope your listeners got a lot of value out of this episode. We all have a limited resource of time, so hope they got a lot taken from today.
I'm sure they will, and enjoy that weather down in Phoenix. I'm in St. Louis, where it's cold. You can see me wearing my flannel. And the fact that I'm wearing flannel just shows you how much I've evolved, because I was raised in housing projects in the middle of the urban jungle. So I didn't know what flannel was until a couple of years ago. The fact that I'm wearing flannel shows you my evolution as a person. So Amanda, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. You too, James.
All right. Bye.